Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex. I'm Bob Pompiani, soon to be joined by Missy Matthews. We get you set for a Tomlin Tuesday. The Steelers coming off a bye. Looking forward to a game against the Saints Sunday at Acrisure Stadium. Last night, New Orleans lost to the Ravens 27-13. One quick note, the league has flexed next week's game. The Cincinnati-Pittsburgh game was supposed to be a Sunday night game. It is now a 4:25 game on KDKA TV, so make a note of that. The Steelers looking to start the second half with a win against a team that has been up and down this season. So we'll talk about that with head coach Mike Tomlin, I'm sure, here shortly. Also, TJ Watt. Will he play this week? DeMonte KZ. These are two guys who can really help this defense. Mike Tomlin is standing by. Let's go upstairs to hear what he has to say.
Good afternoon. Really excited about getting back into the competitive world this week in Acrisure Stadium versus New Orleans Saints. I'm excited for a lot of reasons. It's a Hall of Honor weekend, get an opportunity to honor some Steeler legends within that group. My man Heath Miller, so excited about that component of it, excited about getting this group back into a stadium. We made really good use of our bye week as we talked about last week. And, you know, bye week, there are a lot of things going on bye week usually. From a player perspective, man, we like to give players whatever it is that they need. In some instances, because of health, is resting, recuperation. In some instances, is that because of age, if you will. Sometimes we give guys additional work, developing players. We work on components of our game that we feel like require our attention. Oftentimes, it's situational football, weighty downs, possession down football, 2-minute red zone. We had a good week in terms of some of those things. From a health standpoint, I'll outline some player availability and some things going on with some of those things. Miles Jack got minimized last week with the knee. We'll let his participation be our guide. Kuntz experienced a rib injury. We'll let his participation be our guide. It could limit him at the early portions of the week, but don't have many reservations about his availability. Witherspoon with a hamstring. Will Jackson, who we just acquired with the back, might be limited some at the early portions of the week. Some existing things that we're managing, and we'll let their availability, the amount of availability and the quality of that work be our guide. Levi Wallace as he comes off his shoulder, Ogunjobi as he comes off his knee, and Boswell as he works off of his groin. So some of these guys worked in some capacities yesterday. As we get on the clock Wednesday and get in our normal flow, we'll let their participation be our guide and the quality of that work in terms of us making decisions about whether to utilize them or how often we utilize them. I've got a couple of guys working their way back off of IR. TJ and KZ, both guys have been participants, and like the others who are managing some injury circumstances, we'll continue to monitor those guys. We've been optimistic about their inclusion this week. But again, we got some work ahead of us and got some reaction to that work, how they feel coming off of the work, and et cetera. And so we'll just continue to monitor those guys and make appropriate decisions regarding them as we get closer to game time. Specifically about New Orleans, starting first with their defense. I see some evolution in these guys that's dramatically different from the last time we played them. They're still a four-down front. They play a lot of people up front. They do a great job of getting pressure on your quarterback with Cam Jordan and company. But I see some end-of-the-line awareness and some edge play, some evolution, some hybrid things evolving in their defense. Cam Jordan and company are oftentimes playing in a two-point stance, and I think quarterback mobility and some of the jet sweep things that are in vogue in today's game is really probably pushed them toward that. But there's some schematic changes to deal with from that perspective, and they're a much more versatile group maybe than they used to be in terms of the amount of fronts and things that they're willing to throw at you. And I think the utilization of those edge people, particularly as stand-up guys with Davenport and others, is new and different. Can't say enough about their linebacker tandem, their second-level guys. Davis, as a green dot, as an all-situations player, as a sideline-to-sideline tackler, is very good in the blitz game. They make a lot of plays on the second level. The Honey Badger in the secondary has been a significant addition to them. I think he leads them in interceptions. He's got two. But versatility is and always has been his calling card. He can play in deep defense. He can play down around the line of scrimmage as a down safety. He also plays some nickel. He's really comfortable covering receivers, and he's always been good as a blitzer. Just his location and the myriad of ways that they utilize his talents are something that has our attention and things that we need to get familiar with as we lean in on game time. They've had a variety of people playing at corner due to availability or lack thereof. Obviously, Lattimore is a top-notch guy who's bump capable. All their guys are bump capable. They're good on the line of scrimmage. They get in your face. They work to destroy the normal flow or the rhythm of the offense with those techniques. They get after the quarterback, like I mentioned with Davis. They've been really good in the blitz game, and you saw some of that last night. Oftentimes when you deal with quarterback mobility, it requires that you bring more than 4 people, and they put that on display last night. On the offensive side of the ball, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about Hill and the challenges that he brings, his versatility. He plays in the game at a variety of positions, quarterback among them. They got some schematics that are really challenging when he's playing at quarterback. But he's also capable as a tight end or H-back, and they can do some more traditional things, some play-action passing, some misdirection passing, some run game. So we gotta put a thoughtful and intentional plan together regarding his usage in an effort to minimize his impact on the game. And then, of course, they got Andy Dalton, and Andy is a veteran guy who's highly familiar with us. We're familiar with him as well, and so there'll be a cat and mouse component of us reacclimating ourselves to that element of the competition. He's always been a good and prudent decision maker. He makes fluid decisions. He gets rid of the ball rather quickly. He utilizes all his eligibles, and they've got a nice group a collection of eligibles. They've had some attrition throughout the journey, with Mike Thomas being less than available and Jarvis Landry, but they've had some guys really evolve and step up, like the young receiver Olave from Ohio State. Is proven to be mature beyond his years. Not that we're really surprised by it. In studying him in draft prep, man, he was a guy that probably was under consideration to come out a year ago and chose to stay. So it's probably not a surprise that he's showing the maturation of someone who made that decision some 12 months ago. He's making quality plays for them, but they got a collection of guys. They spread the ball around very well, not only to their wide receivers, but they got a nice tight end group as well, and Kamara as a running back is dangerous in and outside the backfield. They supplement him with Ingram and others. They just do a really good job of personnelling you, moving in and out of personnel groups and spreading the ball around within those personnel groups that it makes it tough to get a beat on them, particularly in certain situations or elements of situational play. But it's been a good week. We got a significant week in front of us, some more work in front of us from a prep standpoint. We're excited about doing it. We'll lean in on it and finish up the next day or so with some schematic preparation, and then get back to the physical work tomorrow with our guys. And I'll pause and open it up for questions.
Mike, if everything goes as planned and both T.J. Watt and Casey are available on Sunday, just how much does that change or elevate the defense as a whole?
I just think that remains to be seen. I think I'll let their contributions speak for themselves, but obviously those are 2 veteran players that are NFL capable and obviously going to be positive contributors to our efforts if available.
Mike, when you use the bye week for self-assessment, where do you see the offense? Where do you feel you need to get better? Where can you get better?
I think we can get better in all areas, and not just offensively, but in all 3 phases. But specifically as it pertains to the offense, we spent a lot of time talking about how we're dividing the labor up and who we're choosing to feature and what component of play and how much we're choosing to feature people. And obviously, when you go to a trade circumstance like we did with Chase, that creates a real avenue to have some of those discussions in terms of the distribution of playmaking opportunities and who works what areas of the field, et cetera. And so feel really good about the work that we were able to get done in that component, or at least in those discussions.
Building off of that, did you use most of the time during the bye week to look at situations like that and figure out ways where you might make changes to try to get better, or did you look at those things and say we just have to do what we're doing better?
Both. In some instances, what we're doing was above the line, and so you continue to grow and develop it or enhance it. And in some instances, obviously, we're talking about some new and different things.
Go ahead.
What are some things you feel like you could build on that you saw from the offense as you were studying?
You know, I thought our misdirection passing game and our pocket movement stuff was really positive and efficient. And so that's been an asset to us. And I think it helps us from a protection standpoint when we're able to change the launch point and we're not a stationary target from that perspective. I thought that was just one component that I thought was really positive.
Mike, we keep hearing this team is getting closer after being able to analyze some of these things during the bye. How close or how far is this team away from what you want?
We'll see. You know, I tend to let our actions do the talking, and I think that's appropriate. And I think oftentimes when you hear what you reference, it's just us responding to questions about the subject. We understand this is a put up or shut up game, and particularly at this level, and so we tend to talk less and let our play speak for us.
Mike,
how, if at all, does the passing game change, the focus of the passing game change with Claypool not here?
You know, I don't know that it does. As I mentioned, it's not just the depth at the position that we were comfortable with in terms of making that move, but just the space in the field in which Chase had made a lot of plays for us also is the space of the field where Pat Freiermuth makes a lot of plays for us. And so it's reasonable to expect him to get continually highlighted in that area as well.
Mike, after the Philly game, Kenny said that he needs to see better study habits from his teammates and those things. I mean, how have you seen the guys respond over the bye week, and what would you like to see from them?
You know, I don't know what he was referring to there, so I'm not going to try to add any color to an opinion. I believe our guys study at an appropriate level, and I've seen that continually throughout this process, whether it's bye or a normal game week. I'm not going to add any color to an opinion that I'm not highly familiar with.
In addition to that, as far as accountability goes, we've heard multiple times from people about, you know, having accountability. Did you see some of that come out in the bye week?
I don't know what you're referring to. Could you be more specific?
Just having players be more accountable. I think even sometimes here on Tuesdays it's been brought up about how, you know, they need to be more accountable for what they're doing.
I think oftentimes when you're not successful, accountability is a component of it, and it is something that gets some attention from a discussion standpoint. But accountability and assessing what it is that we do and what we put on tape is routine procedure for us.
Coach, when you look at Jaylen Warren and Najee's performance so far, Warren's been hitting the hole fast, hard, better average on runs. Is Najee still affected by his injury?
You know, to what degree, I don't know. He's playing, and so obviously he's healthy enough to play. I'll let him speak to that, but both guys have been available to us. We've gotten some awesome contributions from Jaylen, and it's reasonable to expect that to continue. I know, like I mentioned, when we're talking about a division of labor and who's done what well, I know that was, you know, a topic of discussion and very evident in our tape review.
Like, it's not really common to add veterans like Jackson and Casey this time of the year, mid-season. How beneficial could that be for your secondary to have a couple veterans to lean on at this point of the season?
You know, I think anytime you get veteran presence, it's an asset to you. Been there, done that, guys, and both guys are that. I don't necessarily view them as one and the same. Casey's been a part of the program from the outset. We signed him in the offseason. Will's contribution will be determined by his availability and how quickly he's able to learn some of the nuances of what it is that we do and his ability to communicate and function as a collective.
When you were asked that, I'm sorry.
I think you had like 10 defensive backs that played this year. How do you choose, or is it whoever's playing well at the time, that's what you're rolling?
Yeah, we'll let participation be our guide and the quality of that work leading up to performance.
You were asked after the Eagles game about your record, and you were quick to point out that you've been here before, now at 2-6. You talk to the guys, tell them about, hey, this has happened before, and this is how we bounce back?
No, I do not. I do not.
We talked before about otherworldly things that TJ Watt has done. I mean, what does it say about him that he had that injury week 1 and had knee surgery and is still positioning himself to come back and play this season?
You know, TJ is who he is. You know, it's not mystical, the things that he's able to do. And so, you know, I don't know that any of us are surprised with what he's capable of getting done. And, you know, we eagerly await his return.
What was his level of involvement? How much was he able to be involved while he was working his way back as far as, you know, meetings, things like that?
He didn't make any plays, if that's what you're asking.
Was the pass rush starting to come around a little bit 2 of the last 3 games? Like, you affected Brady some. It seemed that the pass rush got a couple sacks, got 3 against the Eagles. Was the rest of the collective pass rush coming around now before it? And Watt adding to that, how much could that help?
I think it remains to be seen. Obviously, we're optimistic, and I think it's beyond Watt. I think it's, you know, availability of guys like Larry Ogunjobi, and the development of new guys like Malik, who's not new to the game of football at this level, but obviously new to us. And so gaining that understanding of what we're asking them to do and how to work as a collective is a component of it for sure.
During camp, it seemed like KZ, there was a lot of 3 safety looks in the defense, which is something that maybe in the past you didn't do as much. Is that something we could see going forward? And what is the advantage, disadvantage with a safety rather than an extra cornerback or a linebacker or whatever?
Yeah, I just think in this era of specialization, I just think particularly defensive specialization to match offensive personnel groupings is a big component. And 3 safety defense or big nickel, as a lot of people refer to it, is one of the things that's in vogue to combat 2 tight end personnel groups, and particularly when one of those tight ends is a vertical upfield type and a guy that's wide receiver-like. And so we explored that some, and it was an asset to us, and it's reasonable to expect us to continue in that vein.
Like you mentioned, this being a put-up or shut-up game, how would you describe the mood you've seen from the guys kind of coming off the bye into this week here?
Appropriate. And not this particular game, but every single game that we play is a put-up or shut-up game. That's just the business that we're in at this level.
Mike, given your current circumstance, might we see more younger players get more reps during games?
If it's conducive to engineering victory, that's our sole agenda. Is putting together a plan and highlighting the skills of players that produce victory. And so if it's a component, if that's an component of the equation, then certainly.
I know this might seem as a little bit of a basic question, but for the rest of the season, what's the goal for this team?
We're singularly focused on this week's opportunity, which is to win this game.
Mike, when you looked at the offense and opportunities that you kind of identified there, how much of that is, you know, looking at what Kenny has done well and sort of tailoring what you want to do going forward to what he's shown to be a strength so far?
Obviously, given the position that he plays and the significance of it, that is a component of the equation, certainly.
What have you seen from him that kind of fits in that category?
Again, like I outlined, the pocket movement, the misdirection passing has been a point of really efficient work for us.
My team's have had a hard time with man downfield penalties on the RPOs this year. Is your instinct to go away from that and to go to more traditional play action, or do you think you can tell your line?
I think that component of the game is here to stay. I think that we all have to get better in tune with what the officials want and what they're looking at from an officiating standpoint. That's obvious just by the nature of the number of calls that's been made in that area, not only against us but against everyone.
Mike, you mentioned defending the 2 tight ends set. Do you like how yours has performed and what's in Connor's role in there? Do you think there's more opportunities for those guys down there?
I think we've gotten some mileage out of multiple tight end personnel groups, and I think there's obviously some more meat on that bone, yes.
Anyone else?
Mike, I'm curious after the Philadelphia game in the bye week. I know Cam, of course, on defense, but who is really leading this team when it comes to the offense in the locker room? Who have you seen kind of stand out in that aspect?
You know, I think we've had a number of guys that have displayed leadership, and I think Kenny has been consistent in that area. I also think Mason Cole, as a hub of communication in the offensive line, has displayed consistent leadership. Pat Fryermuth is an emerging leader. Najee is an elected captain. Deontay is a guy that's taken an active role in the development of some younger people at his position. And so it's coming from a lot of areas, but I think that's a reasonable expectation.
Mike, you mentioned Mason and, the offensive lines. A lot of guys have had the illegal man downfield, false start holding. He's been not penalized this year. What have you seen from him, Mitchell?
I think he's been steady Eddie, not only in performance but in presence, in communication. He's a quality veteran football player.
You've had a lot of moving parts in the secondary because of availability. Art Millette's kind of been the one guy that's been there for you all season. Besides being available, what has he shown and how has he grown since he's been here?
Man, he's really good in first and second down football, blitzing, run game stuff. He's a solid tackler. His level of communication and the quality of his communication really is dramatically improved. And I think that's a reasonable expectation from year one to year two, this being year two, being a contributor for us. And I think that's been evident in his play and particularly when he's in there to this point.
Have you been able to tap into his knowledge of the Saints at all after he was there a few years ago?
I'm sorry?
Have you been able to tap into his knowledge with the Saints at all after he was there a few years ago?
He's got a few helmets in his basement.
This is an example of what you were talking about in training camp, the differences, the evolution of slot play. When you have a really big guy like Chase who's been there and now more of a smaller, shifty guy, potentially might be taking some of the snaps in Sims. How does that change your approach to what you want out of that position?
I think we've been having that discussion continually during this season. The different types of athletes that play inside. There are guys that are vertical slots. There are guys that are non-vertical slots, that are zone winners, that are man winners. I just think that's a component of the specialization of the game, and that's why you see different types of defensive packages. Guys like Arthur Millette playing down against some of that stuff. Guys like Casey playing down against some of that stuff. It just speaks to the specialization that's occurring in today's game.
Maybe yesterday after the bye, at the record you guys have right now, what's kind of been the mindset or the personality of the team? Would you like to see them angry? You want to see them loose, and how do you want them to be, and what are they?
You know, emotions can be good, they can be bad. It's just about whether or not you weaponize them. You know, I'm more concerned about the emotions that we display on Sunday. During the course of preparation, getting to Sunday, I just want the group to be singularly focused, professionally speaking, on preparation, because we believe preparation leads ultimately to quality play.
Do you feel like this is a fresh start of sorts, middle of the season?
You know, I view every week as a fresh start, you know, because your resume means very little. What you've done to this point means very little. The most significant opportunity is the one that awaits us all, whether you're 2-6, 6-2, coming off of a bye week, coming off of a short week. You know, the windshield component is the big picture for us as opposed to the rearview mirror.
Anyone else? Mike, would you look at Jaylen Warren as a feature back at this point when you were talking about changes?
You know, he's a quality back that's made some plays. We'll keep giving him an opportunity to do so, and maybe he'll write that script.
Mike, does the picture change at all? Do you go from a bigger picture, or do you have a bigger picture, or do you go where you're talking about singularly focused game to game?
What do you reference when you say bigger picture?
Well, like if your goal is, you look at, you know, okay, you always talk about Super Bowl, and then that's your goal. But at this point in 2-6, you minimize it.
I don't know that my mindset regarding any of that has changed as I sit here today. It's a Tuesday. We're putting together a plan to win this week, and we're excited about constructing the day tomorrow that's going to allow the guys to prepare to do so. It's simple for me. It's a singular professional focus. You can't worry about the things that are behind us. We better get focused on the things that are immediately in front of us.
What has Steven Sims done? I mean, from going, coming into training camp and then taking the job as a return specialist, and now he's obviously his play has given you confidence to put him in there to trade a guy like Chase. You know,
he's been a guy that's made some plays when given an opportunity, when available. He's electric with the ball in his hands. He flipped the field on us a few weeks ago in the kick game, and so we're excited about giving him a continued exposure to see if that continues.
All right, thanks, Coach.
Thanks, guys.
All right, that's Mike Tomlin, Bob Pompiani back, joined by Missy Matthews. And Missy, it's a bye week. They needed it. Obviously, they still have a lot of guys on an injury list, but the encouraging news out of that press conference is that the word optimistic was used with regard to two guys who I think are big for this defense, starting with TJ Watt and also DeMonte KZ. We saw him in the preseason, and I think things were good when they implemented a 3-3-5.
Yeah, and I think just the way the defense has been playing heading into the bye week, definitely some help would be more than needed. As Coach said, he's eager for TJ Watt's return. TJ was out at practice last week. They started his clock. KZ's was started the week before. So it does seem like they are trending in that direction. They had their bonus day yesterday. Today's players' day off, and then they'll start the official work week for the Saints on Wednesday. So hopefully they can get him back. I think it would be great to see number 90 back out on the field.
Absolutely. Just by being there makes everybody else better. He's one of those magical kind of guys. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll detail all of those. We'll also get into the offense and some changes you may or may not see. But based on what Mike Tomlin said about Jaylen Warren at the end, he has a chance to write a totally different story. We'll see what happens in the next 9 weeks. We'll get into that and more right here on the Mike Tomlin Show on Pittsburgh CW and all the Steeler digital platforms. Thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon in Pittsburgh.
For over 30 years, Steelers Digest has been delivering black and gold news to your doorstep. Photography, game recaps, opinion, and statistics presented in a colorful, easy-to-read format. Don't miss another issue. Subscribe today at Steelers-Digest.com.
Does KZ's presence allow the defense to scheme things up to maybe put you in different spots?
Yeah, it allows us to be versatile in the secondary. When me and T out there, I feel like guys get a good beat on, or offenses get a good beat on where we are, where we're lining, what we're doing, stuff like that. When KZ's out there, it adds a third guy who could also move around, be anything in the secondary, so it does give them a more difficult read.
Does it feel like your job gets easier having guys like KZ and TJ now coming back for the second half of the season?
Yeah, for sure. Both of them are playmakers, you know what I'm saying? So it takes pressure off of myself and other guys to make plays, puts other guys in positions that are reliable to make plays. It's having a full defense back is obviously going to, of course, help us out a lot.
Mega, before KZ was hurt, why did he fit in so well, do you think, to you guys?
I think it's kind of what I was saying earlier. His versatility, his ability to be in the post, to come down, cover in the slot, play in the box, be physical, and that allows myself and TE, two other versatile safeties, to do the same.
Over the bye week, what did you do? What did you evaluate? Tape? I mean, how do you enter kind of the second half of the season coming off the bye?
I didn't get into too much tape. I thought I would, but I didn't. I needed to rest just mentally, press reset. You know what I'm saying? We have a whole second half of the season left. Just like in a football game, second half is a lot of time to make plays, come back, win. You know what I'm saying? So we got a lot of football left. We'll press reset, recharge this past weekend, and go out there and make the plays we got to make.
Did you take like the iPad home and then decide I don't want to pick this up kind of thing?
A little bit, sort of kind of. I picked it up, of course I did, but not as much as I thought I would.
Is that like a Sunday too, or did you watch what other defenses are doing across the league, see if there's anything to pick up?
I watched a lot of football across the league. I wasn't watching scheme-wise what they were doing, but I was watching people that we were going to play for the most part.
So what game specifically do you remember watching, or do you just have it on Red Zone and let it
I kind of hopped around a little bit. I watched a lot of the Cincy game, a lot of the Bills game.
Want to get gear direct from the team? Shop all things black and gold at the official Steelers Pro Shop located on the North Shore. Get the latest sideline apparel and hats, jerseys of your favorite players, authentic memorabilia, custom gear, and exclusives you can only find here. Don't forget, you aren't game day ready without a terrible towel. The Steelers Pro Shop has everything you need to be a part of the legendary Steelers Nation. Come experience the legendary shopping environment or shop online at shop.steelers.com.
Got a couple of guys working their way back off of IR. TJ and KZ, both guys have been participants, and like the others who are managing some injury circumstances, we'll continue to monitor those guys. We've been optimistic about their inclusion this week, but again, we got some work ahead of us and got some reaction to that work, how they feel coming off of the work, and et cetera. And so we'll just continue to monitor those guys and make appropriate decisions regarding them as we get closer to game time.
Those are just two of what seems like a long and lengthy list of injuries, Missy, even after this bye week, and that would include some special teams guys specifically Chris Boswell. He's a very important part of this team, and who knows how his week is going to go.
Yeah, he missed the game in Philadelphia against the Eagles. We know that he's dealing with that groin injury. That's something that Coach Tomlin said we'll have to keep an eye on this week as well. But Christian Kuntz is, another special teamer is dealing with a rib injury. And then the rest of the list is all defensive guys. Miles Jack with a knee, Akilla Witherspoon hamstring, William Jackson III, who they just acquired, dealing with a back injury. That's something that hampered him earlier in the season. Levi Wallace trying to come back from a shoulder. Larry Ogunjobi, who they desperately missed with a back injury. And then Boz, as you said, with the groin.
Ogunjobi's one of those guys, when he's been in there, and he's been affected by injury, but he has been pretty much dominant. I mean, he went in and out of that game in Tampa, I think it was, with an injury, came back and played extremely well. That man, when he's in there, is very much looked at as a guy who can be a disturber of the backfield, tackles for losses, and things of that nature. And they need him to be healthy the rest of the way.
Yeah, if you think of him and Cam Hayward together in the interior, you get TJ Watt back, and Cam Hayward's not getting double teamed. It's a lot easier when number 90's there and drawing attention from the opponent as well. So that would be great if, especially that front, if they're able to get healthy. Yeah,
you look at Witherspoon, he's really been out for a while. He's not had the best of years, but they need people back there. Levi Wallace has been out, maybe one of the reasons why they brought in a William Jackson. And this is a 9-game audition, so to speak, just like it was, I thought, with Witherspoon. Last year they brought him in and said, okay, what can you do? They liked him, signed him to a 2-year deal. Maybe William Jackson can be that same guy this year.
Well, and William Jackson III is somebody the Steelers loved in that draft class. They obviously were not able to get him because the Bengals moved up the spot ahead of them. So as Coach said, it was easy to do business and to make that trade because they knew about him heading into the draft. They liked, and you've seen him when he had spent his time with the Cincinnati Bengals over the years as well. So I do think the secondary, not Minka Fitzpatrick and maybe the safeties, but they have been dealing with so many injuries, and KZ, as we said as well, there was so much hype and talk in training camp in the preseason, being able to play with 3 safeties, and then that final preseason game, I just remember him coming off the field and you could see the look on his face. He said yesterday that he broke his whole forearm and that he dislocated his right wrist. He had 9 screws and a plate inserted. So this was,
And only 10 weeks later, he's coming back, it looks like.
Right.
That's amazing.
Well, he was also suspended as well, so that was part of it. But yeah, that's doesn't sound like it was a simple injury to come back from.
No, and boy, he was very effective. And when you have guys in the slot who are pretty big, if you can line up other people who can take over some of that responsibility, I think it's very big for this defense. Levi Wallace is another guy you'd like to see be healthy and be in there more than he has been, because I think he came here with a pretty good reputation for being a guy who can cover, not just average guys, but number 1 receivers, and we haven't really seen too much of him this year.
Yeah, he's been plagued with injuries as well, but yeah, you hope that especially you need either Akilla or Levi Wallace. You need one of those guys, and hopefully William Jackson III, it's just precautionary with that back. But yeah, it's kind of becoming a mess there. Cam Sutton seems to be the guy holding down the fort in terms of the outside and being able to stay healthy.
Mike Tomlin addressed what it would be like to have veteran guys back in there, William Jackson specifically, and DeMonte KZ. In case you missed it, this is what he said earlier.
I think anytime you get veteran presence, it's an asset to you. Been there, done that guys, and both guys are that. I don't necessarily view them as one and the same. KZ's been a part of the program from the outset. We signed him in the offseason. Will's contribution will be determined by his availability and how quickly he's able to learn some of the nuances of what it is that we do, and his ability to communicate and function as a collective.
Yeah, they need those guys. It makes a big difference back there, especially going against some of the offenses they're going to face moving forward. Although you look at the next 9 games here, we have the one that was flexed, in case you missed that earlier today. The league has announced that the Sunday night game with the Steelers and Bengals, that is now a 4:25 game on CBS and KDKA. So they're gonna need some pretty good quarterbacks. They're gonna need good play in that secondary, specifically down the field. I thought Terrell Edmonds has been very consistent, with maybe one game as an exception. Minka Fitzpatrick's been in position to make plays. He did in the Cincinnati game, but he's missed some opportunities also.
Yeah, and I think, the Saints don't have Michael Thomas. When you face the Bengals, it doesn't sound like Jamar Chase is going to be there as well. So that is good in terms of that. But still, this defense, they were picked to be dominant. Coach Tomlin kind of put that on them during training camp. They accepted that responsibility. We saw it week 1, and then due to injuries and a number of other things, that has not necessarily trended in that direction. But, you have to go back, and I'm sure when they were reviewing the first half of the season in Tampa Bay, they played with so many players that were not, well-known names, and they were able to develop a game plan and execute it. And it takes near perfection when you're doing that to beat Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I think, there's a lot of stuff I'm sure that they went back and will try to continue to implement, or maybe say, hey, that didn't work. But as you said, if you're getting TJ Watt and Demonte KZ back this week, that's just huge for this defense.
And you see Brady there, who's not exactly a mobile quarterback, makes life a little easier for guys up front. And I wonder about Andy Dalton. He's more mobile than Tom Brady, but he's still not one of these classic guys. So maybe they can, kind of tee off, especially if Watt comes back and is playing on Sunday.
Yeah, and I like how Coach said, in terms of Andy Dalton, they have to reacclimate themselves to the cat and mouse game with Andy, who they know very well from his time in Cincinnati. So it will be interesting. I'm sure most Steelers fans watched the Monday night game to see them play the Ravens yesterday. So.
Yep. And it was a big win for Baltimore. Now they're 6-3. They kind of keep grinding out wins, even though they don't play maybe their best football, but their defense, and they've acquired some guys to help their defense. So that'll be 2 more meetings with them coming up. And the Steelers have handled the Ravens pretty well over the years. So that bodes well for them. We'll see how it goes. It starts on Sunday with the Saints. When we come back, we'll talk about the Steelers offense in this bye week. What have they worked on? What different things we can maybe expect in the second half of the season that we did not see in the first half of the season. That's when we come back right here on the Mike Tomlin press conference. We're live on Pittsburgh CW and Steeler digital platforms.
Could your favorite casino app be even better and faster than ever? You bet, because the all-new BetParks app has been built around what you really want, with easier sign-up, faster withdrawals, and all the slots and table games you love. Plus, make your first deposit and get a 100% bonus match up to $750. And 500 free spins. So, are all of your favorite games just a tap away? You bet. BetParks.
Where do you think you can most directly help and impact the team to get able to play?
I mean, majority of the time it's us out on the field. So, as a DB crew, we got to get that ball, If it hit our hands, we got to make plays. That's what they pay us to do. So, at the end of the day, we just got to make plays out there, get turnovers, give our offense another opportunity, to go score some points.
How frustrating was the timing of your injury?
I mean, it was frustrating, because dealing with an injury 2 years ago when I tore my Achilles, and then trying to rehab, doing that stuff last year, get on the team, then broke my arm at the beginning of this preseason. So it was a downside, it got a little dark mode, but, I got my kids that, put a smile on my face at the end of the day, keep working.
How many kids do you have?
I got 2. I got a son and a daughter.
Gotcha. What did you learn about the defense while you're on the sideline rehabbing? Are there things that you can take from the perspective that you had that will be beneficial now that, you hope to be back in the lineup soon?
Yeah, we just got to trust our keys, man. Trust everything the coaches is giving us, executing the play. At the end of the day, they can call out any play. We got to execute it. So that's what we need to do more.
Do you think have you been repping like 3 safety type looks? Is that kind of like or is it too early to know?
We'll see. We'll see. We'll see.
What is your versatility back there?
Anywhere somebody needs help at, Just in case Meek go down, I'll go back there. If Real go down, go play his position, Just anywhere at the end of the day. Just being versatile.
Monte, the broken wrist, is that some way, I hate to say better injury, but than a ligament or anything to that fact?
So if I would have tore anything in my wrist, I'd have been out the season. So
it's a weird way the broken bone.
Yeah, so I just broke my forearm, but I also dislocated my wrist too at that. So that was all right. It popped back in place when they was doing my surgery.
Game starts at 20, best slip is empty. I gotta call KG.
KG, what up? I got nothing for you, Fox. Oh, come on. Jalen. You want to tell? Yeah. Don't call somebody on live TV.
Well, you answered. I have other friends anyway.
Marshawn, Barry.
Listen, I need some tips.
I like L.A.
L.A.?
No, Dallas. That's
Dallas.
Dallas not
Dallas?
the best. We gotta get to Miami. How about Detroit? Nah, Barry over there.
You know what? I'll call y'all right back. Vanessa.
I got a tip for you. Always go with your gut.
I like that. Let's go with our gut.
specifically as it pertains to the offense, we spent a lot of time talking about how we're dividing the labor up and who we're choosing to feature and what component of play and how much we're choosing to feature people. And obviously, when you go through a trade circumstance like we did with Chase, that creates a real avenue to have some of those discussions in terms of the distribution of playmaking opportunities and who works what areas of the field, et cetera. And so feel really good about the work that we were able to get done in that component, or at least in those discussions.
So Mike Tomlin talking about Chase Claypool, traded to the Bears, second-round pick coming back to Pittsburgh, so they'll have 2 of those next year. Missy, Chase Claypool is still only 24. I think the Bears see him as somebody who can fulfill the promise that he had based on his rookie season, and we did not see that here for the last couple of years. But who takes up the slack? Who's the guy who should benefit most by his not being here?
I think obviously you're going to see Miles Boykin, Steve Sims get some more snaps, but Pat Freiermuth has been somebody in the middle, and I feel like we've said this in the earlier half of the season where they don't utilize him enough in the middle of the field or going downfield until later in the game. And that's somewhere where Coach said when they went back and, took note of what Chase was doing in this offense, it was the middle of the field. So that's something that Freiermuth can continue, and hopefully there's more there. He seems to have a good rapport with Kenny Pickett, but I think also George Pickens. You don't trade away Chase Claypool if you don't like the depth behind him. I'm not saying they played the same spot exactly, but I just think Pickens is somebody that we've seen the flashes. Philadelphia, not so much, but something they need to continue working on because it's, you give him a chance and he makes a play. But there you see Freiermuth. He plays tough. He's very physical, and appropriately enough, the Hall of Honor class will be honored at this game. And Heath Miller, somebody that he had a chance to meet as a rookie and continues to have a relationship with. Gone
from Heath to Moose.
Right.
And both those guys have the capability. You know what Heath Miller has done in his career, tremendous career, Hall of Honor career. And Pat Freiermuth, I think, is only going to get better and more targeted, just as George Pickens should be. As far as this offense, though, Mike Tomlin talked about some of the stuff in the offense that he thought went well in the first 8 games. Obviously, they're 2-8. They need a lot more things to happen there. But this is what he had to say about the offense and how it played and some of the things he liked.
I thought our misdirection passing game and our pocket movement stuff was really positive and efficient. And so that's been an asset to us. And I think it helps us from a protection standpoint when we're able to change the launch point and we're not a stationary target from that perspective. I thought that was just one component that I thought was really positive.
And I would imagine, Missy, that you're going to see more of that component with Kenny Pickett running that, mobile pocket, moving to the right or to the left. When he moves to the right, he's pretty accurate on the throw.
And I think, Kenny stayed in Pittsburgh during the bye week to spend some more time at the facility. I know there's a fine line between you need to rest and reload, but also continuing to get better. Being thrown in at halftime of the Jets game, probably unexpected at that point, but he is now the starting quarterback. And Coach was even asked about, we know who the leaders on defense are. Who have you seen on offense? And he mentioned that Kenny has just kind of taken that over, but also mentioned Mason Cole is a hub of communication, a guy who's been really helpful to everybody. And even Pat Freiermuth, he said, is an emerging leader. And we know Najee Harris was elected a captain. So it has been, it's a young offense. It's a new offense. There has been a lot of changes, a lot of hard times, but there are going to be growing pains, and hopefully the second half is almost a fresh start for them, and we're able to see them click and start to play together.
And you see Kenny Pickett using his legs right there. There's nothing worse that a defense wants to see is somebody who can turn what looks like a well-covered play into a first down or close to a first down, and he has that ability like a lot of these guys in the NFL, and boy, it can really affect the flow of a game and sustain drives. And I think you're going to see even more of that as he gets more comfortable. This is going to be his 5th start. And I think as the season goes on, you're going to see more and more comfort with Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, and Mike Sullivan, the Steelers quarterbacks coach, who clearly works very closely with Kenny Pickett, said last week he just has that it factor, that moxie, and he's not afraid, and he just is a fighter. So hopefully once he is more comfortable, as you said, he continues to build a rapport with the eligibles, the guys who are catching the ball like Pat Freiermuth there, the better this offense is able to get. Look, we've been able to see them move down the field. It's not being able to score, and that is clearly something that has to change in this second half if they want to, go for what their goals are and make the playoffs. But sitting at 2-6, you dug yourself into a deep hole. As Coach said earlier in the season, it's not going to take one day or one game to dig yourself out. So they do have a lot of work to do.
They do. And one of the interesting things was about the running back situation. As you know, Najee Harris, he says he's healthy, he's out there, but the numbers just have not been what you would expect from a guy who was 20th overall last year in the draft. However, Jaylen Warren has gotten more time, and Missy, Mike Tomlin pretty much said he has a chance to write his own story with regard to potentially becoming a feature back. I don't see that happening right now. They still like Najee Harris too much in that role, and I would expect his numbers to get better. But it's nice to have a little push from a guy who's really earning his opportunities in Jaylen Warren.
Yeah, and Coach was asked directly about Najee Harris, if that injury that he suffered in training camp is hampering him, and he said he's healthy enough to play. You'd have to ask him if it's hurting him at all in terms of what he's able to put on the field. But yeah, Jaylen Warren, every time he gets an opportunity, it seems like he cashes in. There was the game, I think it was in Cleveland, with the fumble, and that very quickly, I think, changed his mindset. He was benched for a short period of time, but since then we have seen him really help the Steelers try to get it going. He's very, very physical. He's a north to south guy. So I do see a chance of his reps increasing a little bit, but you do hope that Najee and just this entire offense get the run game going and it's more consistent and not something that we just kind of get away from. But also a fast start and scoring points helps you not get away from that.
Really, and I think both those guys are good in the pass game as well. I'd like to see more usage of that. Well-designed screens, set up with some blockers, because I think that could be also a big play when you're involved in a long drive, especially as you get closer to the red zone as well. Both those guys, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out and who gets as many, opportunities in not only the run game but the pass game as well. We'll take a break, come back with more as we continue here on a Mike Tomlin Tuesday. Mike Tomlin, more comments from him, and we'll talk about the Saints when we come back. That's next up, Sunday at Acrisure. We'll be right back.
By the time this Steelers fan is finished drinking his Pepsi, you'll be 15 seconds closer to game time. Steelers watching. Better with Pepsi.
How much slot have you played in your NFL career?
It's kind of where I've been mostly. Outside of returning in Washington, I started in the slot. Started playing in the slot when I got to the league. And I've been there ever since, just bouncing around inside and out. Can do both, really.
As far as replacing Chase when he was in the slot, obviously different body type. How much different will the role be for what they're looking for, with that being the case with you?
I honestly don't know yet. Today was just bonus Monday, so it's not like we're really game planning for the Saints today. But, I see myself getting in there running routes, running more routes than I have been running, still doing the same gadget things, motioning and things like that, jet sweep. So just looking to build on that.
So what's the difference between you and Chase in the slot?
It's obvious Chase a big body, I'm not a big body. We bring different elements to the game. I'm quicker than fast. Chase a big body. We're just different.
Well, you're the prototype for the slot, and all of a sudden we're starting to see huge guys in there. Why is that? Why isn't it a short, quick guys game?
I don't know, honestly. I guess that's the coaches. They like big guys. It's always been like that since I was younger too. You always gonna pick the bigger guy before me, thinking the bigger guy is better than me. But then time will tell.
Steven, you work hard. You finally get that opportunity to return kicks. What does this chance mean to you potentially to have a bigger role in the passing game?
It's everything's the same for me, honestly. Just I'm getting a bigger role, getting more opportunities to help the team win, and that's all I can ask for, just more opportunities, and I got to capitalize on those opportunities.
What do you think you've shown them?
I've done everything they asked me to do. When I get in, I make explosive plays, and I guess they like that.
When Mike Tomlin was asked about why he made the trade, he said, "Hey, we trust our depth at that position." That's you. What does that mean that you have that trust right now?
They trust everybody in the room. It's a couple of us in the slot that are playing the slot, me and Gunner. So we give a different style, both of us playing in the slot. So I guess they trust in that. Just the different versatility we all bring in the slot.
they got Andy Dalton, and Andy is a veteran guy who's highly familiar with us. We're familiar with him as well, and so there'll be a cat and mouse component of us reacclimating ourselves to that element of the competition. He's always been a good and prudent decision maker. He makes fluid decisions. He gets rid of the ball rather quickly. He utilizes all his eligibles, and they've got a nice group of a collection of eligibles.
Yeah, leading the way is Alvin Kamara, who last night was kind of silenced by the Baltimore Ravens. The Steelers would like to take a page out of that and silence him because he's involved in not just the run game, but they utilize him quite a bit in the pass receiving game out of the backfield.
Yeah, the Ravens offense and Lamar Jackson were able to stay on the field and have a ton of drives, but it was very weird. I will admit I went to bed a little bit after halftime, so I didn't get to watch the second half as much, but it just seemed like they couldn't get things going and it wasn't working well for them. So it will be interesting to see, if anybody else is able to get healthy on that offense and to see what Andy Dalton does coming back to Pittsburgh at Acrisure, used to be Heinz Field, where he has played several times. But yeah, and then TJ Watt and DeMonte KZ, you think, the Steelers being able to do a lot more of what they planned to do at the beginning of the year that quickly faded that last preseason game and then week 1 when TJ got hurt.
The other guy is Chris Olave, a rookie, and he's put up some pretty good numbers, right from Ohio State. You heard Mike Tomlin talk about him. They thought maybe he was going to come out a year earlier. He didn't, and you could tell he's very mature. He's making plays down the field, and he's become their #1 target.
Yeah, and that was very evident last night as well. And I just think, the secondary for the Steelers, I think they need one game where it's almost like that Tom Brady Buccaneers game. And yes, it resulted in a win where it's just things seem to go right and you're not having, huge splash play after huge splash play. So this will be hopefully a good start to the second half for the Steelers.
And don't forget about Taysom Hill. He's a guy they, line him up. They could be a tight end. He could be in the backfield. He could be a quarterback. He, if you're looking for a guy who can change the direction of a game or a drive, he would be that guy, and he's had success in that department.
Yeah, you almost have to know when he's coming on the field. That's part of the surprise. We've seen it so many times just watching their games over the years. So it will be interesting to see how they utilize him and Andy Dalton on Sunday.
Their defense is pretty active, too. They can get after the quarterback. They did shut out. You don't see shutouts too often in the NFL these days, Missy, but of all teams, the Raiders went down there and did not score a point in that game. In that game, unlike some of their previous games where they've given up a lot of points, they kind of stuffed drives early on and made it frustrating for Derek Carr.
Yeah, and I think even last night they were playing very physical. I know things weren't going their way. They weren't able to stop. There was just, Lamar Jackson is Lamar Jackson, and sometimes he does things that you're like, how did that happen? But I do think that especially up front, they are physical and something the Steelers offense and Kenny Pickett will have to plan for.
The other thing is, like the Steelers, they have not defensively turned the ball over all that much. They have 2 interceptions, both by Tyrann Mathieu. That's it. They need to come up with that. Most teams are still looking for that. They're not all like the Philadelphia Eagles at a plus 14 after all these games. The Saints have not made enough plays defensively, and so they're going to be looking to tee off on a rookie quarterback as well.
Yeah, and Kenny Pickett has 8 interceptions in his short time as the starting quarterback, taking care of the ball, starting fast. All of the little things that sound so basic are what the Steelers offense needs to get back to try to play good football, let the defense help them get on the field more often and cash in when they have a chance.
We'll take a break, come back with some final thoughts. Mike Tomlin press conference on Tuesday, the game on Sunday. Steelers trying to get to the 3rd win of the season and put some pressure on the rest of the teams in the AFC North. We'll talk about it when we come back. We're right here on Pittsburgh CW.
Welcome back to Ford Truck Talk. Today we're looking at the new F-150.
The official truck of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Wow, did you see that lane change?
Another smooth play by the F-150 with great execution of that parallel park job.
Absolutely stunning.
Newcomers take note.
And now you too can win this Ford F-150.
Professional, show-stopping, built Ford tough. But we shouldn't expect anything else from the best-selling trucks in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it was just interesting to see what other offenses do and how defenses play other teams. It's just cool to look at.
But you were mentioned about Mike as a guy to step up and play.
Yeah.
Do you sense that happening, and what can that do to your numbers? What do you see?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't really care about the extra targets or the numbers or the stats or anything like that. I just want to do anything I can to help help the team win. And if that's me catching the ball more, making more plays on the middle of the field, then I'm going to do that. And
we just want to win, and we just got to get this win this week. And so whatever is asked of me, I'm going to do it. Obviously.
Do you see more two tight ends, more of the H-backs, the two fullbacks?
Yeah, I mean it's a little bit of everything. I think obviously Chase had a pretty big, decent sized role, especially in the 11 personnel game. So we're going to have to obviously see what other people can do and utilize other personnel to replace that void that they left.
I know you and Kenny are close. Did you guys talk at all when you're away from the facility? Was he with you in Boston or anything?
No, I'm pretty sure he stayed here, and we talked a little bit, but nothing crazy. I think everyone just kind of wanted to reset and just kind of get back to where they were before the season, just attacking this next part of the season because we still got a lot of games in front of us.
Matt, what's allowed that relationship to grow? It seems like you guys have really developed some chemistry together.
Yeah, just talking what we see and just the coverages that I see and what he sees, and just kind of piggybacking off one another, what our thoughts are, stuff like that. So the relationship is obviously evolving more and more each day. Just continue to see our progress throughout this year and the rest of our careers.
You guys just played the Eagles. It's almost like Goddard is like their number 2 in terms of targets. So a lot of teams like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you sort of relish that role if that's if that comes for you in the second half.
Yeah, obviously I'm not going to be mad about more targets, yeah, I mean obviously Goddard's the hell of a tight end, and it was cool seeing him play in person, and it's just cool to see what other teams do schematically to get the tight end open. Again, I'm very comfortable in the offense. I mean, I have a very productive year so far, so I'm not complaining at all.
As a Main Street bank, PNC has helped over 7 million kids develop their passion for learning through our Grow Up Great initiative. And now, we're providing billions of dollars for affordable home lending programs as part of $88 billion to support underserved communities, including loans for small businesses and low and moderate income areas. So everyone has a chance to move forward financially. PNC Bank. See how we can make a difference for you.
For those of you who just joined us, just a program note for you. Next week's game, not this one on Sunday, but the following one, which was scheduled to be a Sunday night football game, the Bengals at the Steelers, that has been flexed to a 4:25 game. So that will now be on KDKA TV, CBS, as the Bengals come to town. They're a team right now at 5-4. A lot of teams right in the 500 range. Isn't it amazing in this NFL as you see all these teams, very few of them kind of distance themselves from the rest of the field right now?
Well, it was like in the beginning of the season, teams were starting to pull away, things are evening up, and second half starts for everybody, and we're going to see that again. And then everything always comes down to that week 18, the last game, or something crazy. That's why the NFL is so entertaining and why we all love to watch it.
In case you missed it, also TJ Watt and DeMonte KZ, Mike Tomlin's optimistic they could be back this week. One guy who we haven't talked too much about, Chris Boswell. He missed the game with Philadelphia. Nick Skiba came on, very accurate kicker. He doesn't have the leg of Boswell, but they need Chris Boswell also in potential tight games going down the stretch.
Yeah, we saw, the 59-yarder. He had it home the last time as well, but even Christian Kuntz, the long snapper, he's dealing with a rib injury, so we'll have to watch his availability in practice as well. Those are, special teams they're almost like a unit. You need every part. So Nick Skiba, of course, was able to help out in Philly, and hopefully we'll find out if Boz is can go against the Saints.
We saw the importance of a long snapper in the Bengals game, too. Very important. That's going to do it, Missy. Thank you. Always appreciate it.
You got it.
For Missy Matthews, I'm Bob Pompiani. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next Tuesday right here on the Mike Tomlin Press Conference.